My name is Anita Foreman, and I'm 30 years old. I used to believe that the worst thing a family could do was forget your birthday. I was wrong. The worst thing is when they remember everything about you, your soft spots, your guilt, your history, and aim straight for it. The living room of my grandmother's house still smells like the cedar she polished into the baseboards. Sunlight drifts through lace curtains she hemmed by hand, catching the dust of a life she left to me 5 years ago. I didn't inherit a mansion. Just a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet, good-enough neighborhood, clean lines, a stubborn garden, and a basement I converted into a studio for my freelance design work. I thought love lived in the smallness of things, the way a house holds a memory, the way a kitchen remembers you when you come home late and hungry. My parents, Quentin and Amara, texted, "Family meeting at 7. Important." They never call it a meeting. I lined up water glasses, wiped the table again, and told my boyfriend Ethan not to come. He offered anyway, kind eyes, a steady voice, but this felt like a conversation where the word outsider would be used, and not kindly. They arrived with Lucia, my younger sister at 28, cheeks lit with some glow I couldn't name. New high-end sneakers, a handbag you don't get with coupons. I noticed a hybrid SUV roll past my window and stop in front of my driveway. Temporary tags. The engine hummed like money. "Anita," Mom began. The words softened with syrup. Dad perched forward, elbows on knees. Lucia sat back, folding her arms like a judge about to deliver a sentence. "We're in trouble," Mom said. "Serious trouble." Dad nodded. "My hours at the plant have been cut, drastically. Your mother's clients dried up overnight. Lucia's been helping with groceries and utilities for months. It's unsustainable." Lucia sighed loudly, as if the air itself was heavy. "We can't keep going like this." My stomach pinched. I glanced at the house, its corners, its stubbornness. "What do you need?" I asked. Mom folded her hands. "We need you to consider the most loving thing you could do." A beat. "Sell the house. We'll split fairly. 4 ways." Split fairly. The phrase arrived like a gentle slap. Dad had a folder. He opened it with theatrical neatness, an accountant in a play. "After selling costs and your small remaining mortgage, roughly $400,000. Split 4 ways. That gives us stability. You can rent a nice apartment, keep some cash cushion. Temporary sacrifice for permanent family harmony." Harmony. I looked at Lucia. She didn't meet my eyes, picking at the stitching of her new bag. Grandma's photo on the mantel seemed to watch the scene, her smile floral and restrained. "This house." I steadied my voice. "Grandma left it to me specifically." Lucia laughed, tiny and bitter, "Because you were her favorite." "She left it to me," I said, "because I was the only one who visited her every week, because I helped with her meds and fixed the dripping sink, because you manipulated her," Lucia snapped. "She was old. People like you." "Lucia," Dad warned, but the mask had already slipped enough for me to glimpse the resentment underneath. I inhaled once, slow. "I'm not saying no. I'm saying, let me see the bills. If the crisis is immediate, I'll pay them directly. Mortgage, utilities, medications, I'll cover them while you get stabilized." Silence, hot and crowded. Mom's face stiffened. "You don't trust us." Her voice trembled on command. "We're your family, Anita." "I do trust you," I lied gently. "But if this is financial triage, direct help is faster and safer for everyone." Dad's jaw worked. "We're not children. We don't need oversight." "It's not oversight. It's a plan." Lucia leaned forward, voice low. "If you loved us, you'd sell. Simple." I felt the room tilt. The cedar. The sunlight. The portrait of Grandma, watching a play she never wanted staged. I thought of the nights I fell asleep in her guest room, of the way she'd whisper, "This house is a promise, Anita. It'll be your sanctuary when I'm gone." I thought of replacing the countertops myself and bleeding on the tile when the drill slipped, of Google searching grout at 2 a.m., of small triumphs no one saw. "I won't sell my sanctuary to fix bad math I haven't seen," I said finally. My voice surprised me by sounding calm. "I will not, but I will help, directly, as much as I can." The temperature dropped. Mom's eyes shuddered. Dad's shoulders rose like a wall. Lucia's smile turned delicate and cruel. "Message received," Mom said. "You value property over people?" I swallowed. "I value truth." They left without hugging me. The SUV purred away, leaving a light taste of exhaust and something perfume sweet I couldn't place. Ethan arrived 20 minutes later with takeout and a frown. I told him everything. He listened like a man who knows small words can patch big holes. "Anita," he said, "if they're truly in crisis, they'd hand you bills so fast the paper would burn." "I know," I whispered, "but what if I'm wrong? What if they're drowning and I'm clutching a house key like a life ring?" He set down the cartons, took my hands. "Then the numbers will prove it." That night I couldn't sleep. I scrolled my mother's Instagram only to realize she hadn't blocked me. She'd simply unfriended me months ago. Smart. Sneaky. I found a public tag from her sister at a spa weekend 2 weeks earlier. Champagne flutes, matching robes, the caption, "Self-care with my ride or die." Deserved. Meanwhile, we're at my table planning my permanent family harmony. A message from Mom landed at 1:07 a.m. "We're giving you space to rethink. Families share burdens. We won't beg." The period at the end was a nail. I closed my eyes and pictured Grandma's hands threading a needle. "A house is more than shelter," she used to say. "It's where you stand when the wind lies to you." The next morning, I did something I never imagined I'd do with my own parents. I started a list. Things that didn't add up. New hybrid with temp tags. Spa weekend photos. Why did Mom quietly remove me from her circle? Lucia's bag, the shoes. The word fairly said like a verdict. At lunch, I drove past my parents' street. The SUV sat shining in their driveway like a trophy. I took a photo and hated myself for it. On my way back, my phone lit up with a call from Patricia, my cousin, the one who works at Dad's plant. "Hey, random question," I said when she answered, trying to keep my voice breezy. "How bad are the hours right now?" "Bad?" Patricia laughed. "Girl, they're booming. We're drowning in orders. OT for days." My mouth went dry. "And Dad?" "Promoted to shift supervisor 2 months ago." She paused. "He didn't tell you?" "No, he didn't." My heart began to beat in a pattern I recognized. Not panic. Not yet. Just the rhythm of a door unlocking in a dark hallway. By dinner, a different Anita sat at my own table. One who saved receipts and screenshots. One who bookmarked public posts from people who forgot privacy settings. The part of me that still wanted to be wrong dialed Ethan. The part that didn't open a new tab searched licensed private investigator near me and started writing an email I never thought I'd write. "Please confirm retainer. I need to verify recent purchases, vehicle leases, property records, and any social media under alternate handles for the following names." I hit send. The house settled around me, old wood sighing with the weight of choices. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked at a shadow that had stepped too close to a fence. I looked at Grandma's photo. "If I'm wrong, I'll apologize forever," I told her. "If I'm right, I won't sell a single shingle." The wind rose, ruffling the lace. It was probably nothing. Probably. But for the first time since the family meeting, the word no felt less like defiance and more like a boundary. And boundaries, I was starting to learn, are just love wearing armor. The private investigator's report arrived 5 days later. Neat PDF, polite email, world-ending content. I opened it alone, sitting at Grandma's old kitchen table, the same one she used to roll pie dough on. The irony wasn't lost on me. Family recipes turned into financial autopsies. First page, Dad. Quinton Foreman, age 58, employed full-time at Riverside Manufacturing Plant. Recent promotion to shift supervisor. Salary increase confirmed. Not a word about cut hours. I scrolled farther. Recent vehicle purchase. Toyota Highlander Hybrid, $45,700. Registered 3 weeks before the family meeting. Second page, Mom. Amara Foreman, freelance bookkeeper. 3 active luxury brand transactions traced through resale platforms. Chanel tote, Gucci crossbody, Louis Vuitton clutch. Combined value? Over $6,000. Attached screenshots from a Facebook group titled Haute Handbag Exchange. There she was, my mother, username @AmaraLux, posting, "Another spa weekend. Couldn't resist treating myself." Third, Lucia, my younger sister, my supposed ally. The report linked her to a BMW M3 lease, posted photos under a private Instagram handle, @LucianLux. Champagne toasts at concerts, poker nights in downtown lounges, captions full of fake humility. Work hard, play harder. I stared until the words blurred. But what finally broke the illusion was a screenshot buried at the end, Message from Amara Foreman to her sister, 6 weeks prior. Once we get Anita's house money, Quentin says we can lowball the Florida place, all cash. Imagine Christmas there. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My parents' caution's crisis was a cover story for a vacation property. Ethan came over that night with 2 coffees and saw the printed pages scattered like confetti across the table. He skimmed 1, 2, then looked up. They lied about everything. I nodded. My mouth was too dry for words. What are you going to do? I stared at the ceiling fan turning above us, the old wood creaking softly. I'm going to give them a chance to tell me the truth before I show them proof of it. He frowned. Anita, this isn't a misunderstanding anymore. It's a setup. Maybe, I said, but I need to hear them lie to my face. Once. The next evening, I texted the family group chat. Dinner at my place tomorrow. I've been thinking about your request. Let's talk again, calmly. Mom responded instantly. Of course, sweetheart. We knew you'd come around. I didn't reply. That night, I took quiet precautions. Changed the locks, set up extra cameras facing the porch, saved every screenshot to both cloud and flash drive. Grandma used to say, trust, but write it down anyway. When they arrived, the atmosphere was polite on the surface, toxic underneath. Mom came bearing a casserole, smiling too wide. Dad wore his reasonable man face. Lucia looked bored, scrolling her phone. I've been doing research, I began softly. There are local programs that could help with your financial situation. Food banks, utility aid, mortgage relief. I even printed some brochures. Mom's smile wavered. We don't need charity, Anita. Just temporary assistance, I said evenly. Since the plant cut Dad's hours. My hours aren't... Dad stopped himself mid-sentence, but the word hung there, damning. I set the brochures down, then slid a manila folder across the table. Inside, photos, receipts, screenshots, printouts. I'm not showing you these to humiliate you, I said quietly. I just need you to stop lying. Mom's fingers froze halfway to the folder. What is this? Your promotion, Dad. The new SUV, Mom's spa trips, Lucia's BMW lease, and this. I pulled out the message thread. The deposit for the Florida vacation home you plan to buy with my house money. Lucia shot up from her chair. You hired someone to spy on us? I verified, I said, because family doesn't add up to fraud. Mom's mask cracked first. You invaded our privacy, she shouted. After everything we've done for you. After everything you've taken, I corrected. You tried to guilt me into selling my grandmother's house under false pretenses. Dad's voice hardened. We deserve some comfort after decades of work. You live in luxury while your family suffers. This isn't luxury, I said, gesturing around. It's love made solid. It's her gift to me. Mom's expression twisted, ugly now. She was old, confused. You took advantage of her affection. There it was, the real resentment, naked and sharp. No, I said. I was the only one who didn't treat her like an ATM with a pulse. The silence that followed was so thick I could hear the ticking of Grandma's antique clock. Finally, I stood. If any of you contact me about selling this house again, I'll file for harassment. I have everything documented. Lucia's eyes burned. You'll regret this. I already regret trusting you, I said. They stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled loose. That night, I sat awake until 2 a.m., every light on. Ethan called. You okay? I think so, but it's not over. I was right. At 2:17 a.m., pounding at the door jolted me upright. A female voice, Lucia's, slurred through the wood. Let me in. We need to talk sister to sister. Her words were messy, soaked in alcohol and fury. When I didn't answer, she began kicking the door. You stole Grandma's house. It's mine too. The security camera's red light blinked steadily. I called the police with shaking hands. By the time officers arrived, Lucia was still screaming. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She says I'm trespassing, she told them wild-eyed. But this is our house. Do you live here? One officer asked. She used to, I interjected, holding up the deed. Not anymore. The officers escorted her away. One of them turned to me and said gently, Install stronger locks. I already did, I whispered. 2 days later, an envelope slid into my mailbox. A lawyer's letter, Mom and Dad. Intending to contest the will, citing possible undue influence. My attorney, bless her, crafted a reply that read like poetry dipped in acid. Any such claim, raised 5 years after probate, would be frivolous and construed as harassment. That ended that, but peace, still nowhere to be found. Mom began a smear campaign online, cryptic Facebook posts about ungrateful daughters who forget where they came from. I stayed silent, but silence has its own gravity. A week later, I bought a new security system and scheduled therapy. When Ethan helped me mount the cameras, he said, "You know, this isn't just about a house anymore." "I know," I said. "It's about finally understanding who my family really is." He tightened the last screw, glanced at me. "Then start preparing for fallout." I nodded, because some storms don't blow over. They dig in. And I could feel one coming. The fallout didn't explode all at once. It leaked, slow and poisonous, into everything. For a week after Lucia's arrest, no one in my family called. Then the messages started coming, one by one. First, Mom, "You've embarrassed us, Anita. We can't show our faces at church." Then Dad, "Bailing your sister out was the least you could do after what you've done." And finally, Lucia, "You think you're better than us just because Grandma played favorites." I didn't respond. I saved every message instead. My therapist called it protective detachment. I called it survival. A few days later, Eleanor, my godmother, asked to meet for lunch. She was one of Mom's closest friends. Sweet woman, all pearls and posture. I half expected an ambush, but curiosity won. We met at a cafe near downtown. She clasped my hand with both of hers. "Your mother is heartbroken," she began, tone rehearsed. "She says you've become cold, that you're letting money destroy your family." I let her talk for nearly 5 minutes, nodding, sipping my coffee. Then I opened my phone and showed her the screenshot of Mom's message. "Once we get Anita's house money, we can finally buy the Florida place." Eleanor's breath hitched. "She said that?" I nodded. "And she already put down a $20,000 deposit before I even knew they wanted me to sell." Eleanor looked sick. "She asked me for a loan last week, said it was for bills." "Don't," I said simply. "Please don't." She didn't. The next day, my lawyer emailed. "The Foremans have officially withdrawn intent to contest the will." Translation: they realized they couldn't win. But humiliation has a way of twisting pride into madness. That night, I caught Dad parked outside my house in the hybrid SUV. Engine off, headlights dimmed, just sitting there, watching. I turned on the porch light and stared straight back through the blinds. After a minute, he drove away. The next morning, he texted, "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family." I typed back, "No." I exposed what was already broken. Then I blocked him. It should have ended there. But people like my parents don't accept endings they didn't write. A week later, I woke to pounding on my door again. This time, it wasn't Lucia. It was 2 police officers. "Ms. Foreman?" one asked. "We received a report from your parents. They claim you've been harassing them, sending threatening messages." "What?" I blinked. "I haven't contacted them since the lawyer's letter." The officer handed me a printout. A fake email. Someone had created an account under my name, sending vile, accusatory rants to my parents' inbox. It took me a second to process it. Then I said quietly, "I have proof that isn't me." I showed them my phone history, the screenshots of harassment I'd actually received. The officer nodded, expression tightening. "We figured something was off. You seem more like the target than the aggressor." He paused. "You might want to consider a restraining order." I filed that same afternoon. The hearing date was set for 2 weeks later. By then, I'd already installed more cameras and hired a lawyer to handle everything. Mom's social posts had turned vague and desperate. It hurts when your own child turns you into the villain of her story. Some people worship money and call it independence. I stopped reading them, but Ethan didn't. One night, he showed me something that made my stomach twist. A thread on Mom's Facebook. Dozens of relatives commenting, "Poor Amara, she raised that girl alone most of the time." And then, "Anita always had a mean streak. She probably pressured the old woman for that house." I shut my laptop so hard the sound startled us both. "They're trying to rewrite history," I said. Ethan squeezed my hand. "Then write your own version louder." That's exactly what I did. The next morning, I sent an email to every relative who'd taken Mom's side. Subject line, "For the record, the truth." Inside, I attached a concise, factual timeline, screenshots of the SUV purchase, Dad's promotion announcement, Mom's handbag posts, the investigator's evidence, and the Florida property message. No commentary, no insults, just facts. By evening, my phone was flooded with replies. Half were apologies. The other half were stunned silence. One from my aunt stood out. "Amara called me crying after your email. She said you're cruel. But for the first time, I think I understand what she's capable of." Then came the real twist. Patricia, the cousin at Dad's plant, called me again. Anita, you're not going to believe this. Your dad got caught falsifying overtime records. My breath caught. What? He was clocking out early but hanging around to make it look like his hours were cut. HR cross-checked surveillance footage. They found everything. And it gets worse. He'd been giving Lucia short-term shifts under his name. Lucia doesn't even work there, I said flatly. Exactly. Nepotism and fraud. He's fired, Anita, effective immediately. I sat in silence for nearly a full minute before I said softly, so the fake hardship became real. Pretty much. Patricia hesitated. Be careful, okay? He's furious. 2 days later, another domino fell. Mom's bookkeeping license was suspended after one of her clients reported discrepancies. Word spread fast through Eleanor's business circle. 3 clients dropped her in a week. Their income, gone. Their savings, bled dry from that Florida deposit. They had to list their house for sale. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same living room where they demanded I sell mine was now their real estate ad backdrop. Lucia called next. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was thin. They're losing everything, Anita. The house, the car. Mom cries every night. Dad blames you. They did this to themselves, I said quietly. I know, she whispered, but I can't fix it. I'm drowning too. The people I owe money to, they're serious. I need help. I closed my eyes. Lucia, the only thing I can offer you is honesty. You can turn yourself in, tell the truth, start over, but I won't fund your chaos. She started sobbing. They're going to hurt me. I took a shaky breath. I'll call the police. I'll report the threats, but you're not getting money from me. I kept my word. I filed a report and gave them what details I had. That night, for the first time in months, I slept. Not because I felt safe, but because I finally felt done explaining myself. The next morning, I walked through Grandma's garden, the rosemary, the stubborn roses still blooming despite neglect. I whispered, "You were right. This house is a sanctuary." But a sanctuary isn't a place to hide, it's a place to rebuild. I opened my laptop and began typing a post for a support forum about toxic families. I titled it, "When Family Becomes a Financial Trap." I told my story, carefully, anonymously, and ended it with this. You can love people and still close your door. You can protect what's yours without being selfish. Boundaries aren't betrayal. They're the last form of honesty left. Within hours, dozens of comments poured in. People thanking me, people saying, "Me too." And just like that, something shifted. The house wasn't just mine anymore. It was the beginning of something bigger. It's strange how karma doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers. Tick, 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 until everything that was built on lies starts to tilt. By the time my restraining order hearing came, my parents didn't show. Maybe they were too embarrassed. Maybe they were too busy watching their own world collapse. The judge granted it without hesitation. Given the evidence, she said, this is not a daughter defending herself from family gossip. This is a woman defending herself from harassment. Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. It's one thing to cut off strangers. It's another to realize you've had to legally protect yourself from the people who taught you to say please and thank you. 2 weeks later, Patricia called again. You sitting down? She asked. I was. They didn't just fire your dad. The company pressed charges. Falsified overtime is fraud, Anita. My throat went dry. Is he? They're negotiating. He'll probably avoid jail if he pays restitution. But everyone at the plant knows. He's ruined. The quiet after that was sharp. Patricia lowered her voice. I don't think he even gets it yet. He still tells people he's the victim. I thanked her, hung up, and sat at the kitchen counter staring at Grandma's photo. The smile in that picture used to make me feel safe. Now it felt like she was watching me learn lessons she never wanted me to have to learn. The chain reaction spread. Mom's bookkeeping license suspension became public record. A client filed a complaint about negligence. And while nothing criminal came of it, the stain stuck. Word travels fast in small business circles. She started offering discounted services online. 1-star reviews followed. By the end of the month, she shut everything down. I heard from Eleanor that Mom cried when she realized 3 clients, the ones who dropped her, had done so because Eleanor finally told them the truth. Not gossip, just facts. She said I ruined her reputation, Eleanor told me over the phone. I told her she ruined it herself. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she added softly, You did the right thing, Anita, even when it hurt. Lucia, though, her fall was the steepest. She'd been borrowing money from friends, from poker acquaintances, even from her ex-boyfriend. When she couldn't repay them, threats started. Her voice messages were terrified and frantic. They said they're coming for me, Anita. Please, I'll pay them back. I swear, I just need a week. You don't understand. They know where Mom lives. I called the police again, gave them every recording. They took it seriously this time. They told me to stay away from her physically. The people she was involved with weren't the kind you talk down. That night, Ethan stayed over. We didn't speak much. He just sat beside me on the couch, his hand over mine, both of us staring at the muted flicker of the TV. He finally said, "You're carrying more than one lifetime of hurt right now." I leaned against his shoulder. It feels like it. Then came the call I wasn't expecting. It was from a nonprofit group I'd written to after sharing my story online. The Center for Financial Resilience. "We read your post," said a woman named Jenna. "Would you consider speaking at our workshop? We help people who've experienced financial manipulation from family members." I laughed softly. "I'm not a speaker." "Neither were we," she said, "until someone needed to hear our stories." That line landed deep. I said yes. The night before the event, I found Grandma's journal while reorganizing the closet, a tiny leather-bound book I hadn't opened since she died. On the last page, her handwriting slanted but firm. "Anita is the only one who visits me because she wants to, not because she expects anything. This house will be her sanctuary when I'm gone. I hope she never lets anyone take it from her." I read it twice, then a third time. Tears came quiet and steady, dripping onto the paper. The next day, I walked onto a small stage at the local community center, maybe 40 people in folding chairs. I told them everything. The pressure, the guilt, the moment I almost gave in, the betrayal. And I ended with, "You can't build peace on lies. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're instructions for how to love you properly." When I finished, the room stayed silent for a long beat. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone did. A woman in the front row stood up crying. Afterward, she hugged me and whispered, "I thought I was the only one. My son's been asking me to sell my home for the family. Not anymore." That hug changed something in me. Weeks passed. The support group grew. Ethan helped me renovate the old sewing room into a meeting space. Soft lights, chairs in a circle, fresh paint. On the mantle, beside Grandma's photo, I framed her journal entry. Below it, I placed a brass plate that read, "This house stands because truth did." Every Thursday night, people arrived. Single mothers, retired teachers, young adults escaping controlling parents. We shared stories. We cried. We laughed in disbelief at how similar our family's tactics sounded. Lucia once texted again, begging for money to start fresh. I didn't answer. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Mom's house sold for far less than they listed it for. I saw the listing online, still using bright words like cozy, spacious, and great potential. I almost laughed. They moved into a small apartment near the highway. Dad stocked shelves at a hardware store. Mom got a cashier job at a grocery chain, the same store she'd once said was too overpriced for our budget. It was poetic, but it wasn't revenge. Revenge feels hot and quick. This was cold, slow truth. That spring, the nonprofit invited me to partner officially, not just as a speaker, but as an advocate. They called it Financial Abuse Awareness Month. I designed posters, shared hotline numbers, even helped draft a guide called When Family Uses Guilt as a Currency. Each step felt like adding another brick to a wall that used to just be mine. Now it was a shelter for others too. One evening, as I closed up after a group session, Ethan said, "Your grandma's house has become more than a home. It's a movement." I smiled, tired but proud. Then she'd be proud too. I looked out the window. Fireflies danced over the porch like tiny lanterns. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel afraid of the night. Because now, even when the dark came knocking, I had a lock, a light, and a life built on truth. 6 months later, I was standing in the same garden where Grandma once taught me how to prune roses without getting hurt. The air smelled like rain and rosemary, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was bracing for something. The consequences had finished their slow, merciless work. Dad's termination became public record at the plant, falsification of documents and nepotism. Because it was for cause, he lost the pension he'd been 2 years away from claiming. 30 years of work, erased by greed. Mom's situation worsened too. Her accounting license suspension stretched longer than expected, and her reputation never recovered. She'd tried to start over doing financial consulting on social media, but word got out quickly. Every post drew comments like, "Is this the woman who scammed her daughter?" They eventually sold their house at a $60,000 loss, barely scraping enough to rent a small two-bedroom apartment. The same walls where they once demanded my sacrifice now echoed with the sound of consequence. Lucia's spiral had hit rock bottom, then bounced, just barely. The gambling debts forced her into a recovery program as part of a plea deal. She moved into a halfway house, attending GA meetings every night. I hadn't seen her since the restraining order, but last month she mailed me a handwritten letter. Anita, I'm not asking for forgiveness, just understanding. You were right. I was drowning in debt and pride. I blamed you because it was easier than facing myself. I'm trying to get better now. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times, then placed it beside Grandma's journal in a drawer. I didn't know if I'd ever write back, but I didn't throw it away either. In the meantime, my life had changed in ways I couldn't have predicted. The nonprofit where I'd started volunteering offered me a paid position, Family Financial Abuse Prevention Coordinator. They even created the role specifically for me. The salary wasn't huge, but the purpose was. Every day, I helped people spot red flags, subtle manipulations, emotional traps disguised as family loyalty. I spoke to seniors, college grads, single parents, people like me who'd been taught that love meant saying yes, even when it hurt. The stories were heartbreaking and healing. A retired teacher named Margaret told me how her daughter tried to guilt her into signing over her house. A young man named David shared how his brother almost drained his inheritance by borrowing money for investments. Each time, I told them what I'd learned the hardest way possible. You don't owe anyone your stability. Family who truly loves you won't ask you to destroy yourself for their comfort. Word spread. Within months, our Thursday night group grew too large for Grandma's living room. We rented a community center room, folding chairs in a circle, coffee urns, a whiteboard with quotes from members. We called it the house that stood, because mine had, and because so many others were learning to let theirs stand too. Then, one ordinary morning, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost ignored it until I heard the voice. Anita, Dad said softly. I froze. His tone was different. No bluster, no bitterness, just weariness. I wanted you to know, he said. I started therapy. The hardware store offers it through the employee program. I said nothing. He continued, voice trembling just slightly. My therapist asked me when I first started feeling entitled to things that weren't mine. I couldn't answer. Then I remembered. When my father died, he left everything to my older brother. I swore I'd never be that man, the one who picked favorites. And then I became worse. A pause, then a broken laugh. At least he was honest about it. I breathed out. What do you want, Dad? Nothing, he said quietly. For once in my life, nothing. I just wanted you to know I finally understand. What we did to you, what we tried to do, it was unforgivable. His voice cracked. But the work you're doing, helping people avoid families like ours, that matters. You matter. Before I could respond, he added, that's all, and hung up. I sat in silence for a long time, staring at Grandma's photo. For the first time since all of it began, I cried. Not out of anger, but something softer. Maybe grief, maybe release. Because people can change. Maybe not enough to repair the past, but enough to recognize the damage. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at a national conference on financial abuse prevention. In a room full of social workers, lawyers, and advocates, I told my story, our story. I talked about how guilt can disguise theft, how family unity can become emotional blackmail, and how boundaries aren't cruelty, but clarity. And at the end, I shared what I now call the 7 rules of family boundaries. Trust, but verify. Love doesn't exempt accountability. Never make big financial decisions under emotional pressure. Legitimate need can be documented. Manipulation can't. Family helps family should never mean self-destruction. No is a full sentence. Love doesn't require proof through money. Anyone who truly cares about you won't ask you to betray yourself. When I finished, the room stood. Not an applause for me, but for what we all knew, that boundaries save more than money. They save people. After the talk, an elderly woman approached me, tears in her eyes. My son is trying to make me sell my house, she said, voice trembling. But after hearing you, I'm keeping it. Your grandmother would be proud. I smiled. She'd be proud of you too. That night, I sat alone in my living room, lights low, and made a decision. I would start my own foundation, the Helen Mason Foundation for Financial Independence, named after my grandmother. The goal? to raise the same amount my family once demanded from me, $400,000. But this time, it would go to helping people protect what's theirs, legally, emotionally, financially. Ethan helped me build the website. Donations started trickling in, $5 here, $20 there, each one attached to a story. My brother tried to take my car. My aunt drained my college fund. Because of your videos, I said no. We'd raised $217,000 so far, halfway there. Eleanor told me Mom cried when she found out about the foundation's name. She said, she's giving away what we wanted, but to protect people from us. Dad's reaction was simpler. Good for her, he'd said. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all we'd ever get. On the 1-year anniversary of the family meeting, I hosted an open house. Not to sell, but to celebrate. The support group came, the nonprofit team, even Patricia and Eleanor. The rooms glowed with laughter, the kind that doesn't come from denial, but from survival. We hung a banner across the living room, the house that stood, and the people who learned to stand too. Under Grandma's framed journal entry, I added my own words in gold ink. Love isn't measured in dollars surrendered, but in boundaries respected. I stood there a long time reading both. The house still stood, so did I, and because of both, others could now stand too. That, I realized, was the real inheritance Grandma left me. Not bricks or deeds, but strength with purpose. And for the first time in my life, I finally felt what she must have wanted me to feel all along. Safe, free, home.